Hello, social media. It's Jay and Dan and Day and Jay talking point, talking waffle, talking rubbish. Hi, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Jay. How you doing, my man? You're right.
I'm good, thank you very much. So we'll explain for those that are watching on catch up and watching now that talking point is something that we have spoken about, which was that we were going to go on and talk absolute dribble about a different topic every time that we come on in the near future and so on. So, and because of our connection and background, I believe that we're going to focus on music this week to kick us off, and the definition of good music, bad music, and music in general. So, and the purpose of this is that it's very informal. As you'll probably know, I'm not wearing my nice laid back live shirt and I've got my book. This is all unscripted. This is all going to last as long as it's interesting to me and Dan and the viewers at home. And we're going to talk, as I said, we're talking music. And yeah, we want you guys at home to join in. Stick them in the comments. We're going to ask some questions along the way, i.e. about music, bands and everything like that. So yeah, get involved. We'd like to hear your questions. We'll put them up on the screen as we go. So the definition of music in the dictionary, again, this is pre-unscripted. I'm going to type into Google music. And I'm sure they might come up like, what does music? Wikipedia, which is always accurate, apparently.
Solid information there, always.
Right, so music is the art of arranging sounds in time to produce a composition through the elements of melody, harmony, rhythm, and timbre. So it is one of the cultural universal aspects of all human societies. General definitions of music include common elements such as pitch, which any modern artist doesn't have without help, which governs melody, harmony, rhythm, and association. So obviously music is saying about sound. It doesn't say anything about the words like, such as songs without instruments accompanied. Instrument pieces, so it doesn't say that it has to have instruments to be music. So we can't have the argument that music we hear on said radio or live that doesn't actually hold an instrument doesn't necessarily mean it's not music. So that's the end of our show, because we were going to argue that fact. So again, if you're watching, I'm going to type in here. So again, this is so informal. We're going to type in the comment section that you guys can listen. That goes there, and then it comes back and tells me that it didn't go on, but it did. So let's talk music. So, guys, if you've got like a favourite band or group or solo artist, please put it in the comments section, because me and Dan will be the version of X Factor, and we will scrutinally give our opinion on that person or band or whatever genre, and that might be quite fun as well. Anyway, so we're going to do a backstory. So those that didn't meet Dan, when we did an interview back last year, Mr Dan Veall, accomplished bassist, i.e. that he's finally learned how to play it.
Well, I don't know about that.
We'll get to that. Got Mr Dan Veall, accomplished bassist, a musician who has been in more bands than he cares to admit, which is either because he's really bad or really good.
Modest.
And your skill set has taken you to not only perform, but to critic instruments and obviously in specialities in bass. So you do have a little bit of, bragging rights when it comes to knowing a little bit about music, because it's your job to a degree. And you didn't. That is not green screen behind you. That is genuinely actual musical equipment.
Toys, absolutely.
Toys, as musicians call them. We could sit here and justify why it's okay to buy more than one musical instrument, which would be the same as saying to your wife, "Why have you got more than one handbag?"
We should probably do that, actually.
No,
But
do we? Do we?
no.
Do-
I'm only joking. I value my life far higher than that.
Okay, so if I go first, then, for the purpose of comedy, so if I pick a band at random, or a group, or an artist from the sky that I might know. Okay, one of the world's most popular musicians, or whatever. We're going to start with Elvis, which is a real nice base. Everybody knows who Elvis is, and if you don't, you should probably delete the internet out of your life because Elvis and the music that he produced, wrote, and sung is probably in the underlays of quite a lot of stuff you see in modern state. So, what in Mr. Dan Veall's world would you class genre-wise as Elvis? Is he blues?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I mean, there are many different elements to his music. I mean, "Love Me Tender" you wouldn't call like a blues track,
No.
but there's elements of soul, I suppose.
So if you're
Later on,
like
rock and roll, rock and roll.
rock and roll, like you say.
Yeah,
Yeah. So again, Elvis really, I suppose, meddled with all genres because he didn't have like one go-to. Although he had an image, his music was, like you say, slow, fast, medium, tempo-wise. Yeah, so that's a hard one, like you say, to go through with Elvis. But if you was to say now, modern day, a lot of artists genuinely do have a genre they stick to. If that would make sense.
Do you think it's because I'm going to just dive straight in? Do you think it's because of the way that the music business is run now versus how it was then? Certainly because we're super saturated with so much music. I mean, was Elvis being multi-genre, whatever, because it wasn't so saturated and he had the freedom to do that, or they had to do it in order to kind of like please as many people as possible because there weren't like millions and millions of people tuning into the internet? I don't know.
I think the point that you've touched on there, if we elaborate, is that when your parents say you can't please everybody, you could probably say that Elvis, his career was to deliberately please everybody because they made their money on albums, and I'm not on about an album that's this big. I'm on about an album that is this big. It's a vinyl album which somebody save up a lot of pennies to purchase.
Yeah, sure.
Which you then obviously gave royalties and rights to musicians and songwriters and artists and all that back in the day. So yeah, if you were going to try and make as much money as possible back then, I'm guessing you had to be appealing on the radio, on the old airwaves, to everybody. Whereas now, with a lot more people having more access to music, you don't have to be specific about you could be one genre specific because there's more people tuning in. Would that make more sense? Does that make sense?
Because it does make sense. I mean, I'm just kind of like pondering it. I mean, you kind of caught me off guard with that question. And I'm kind of sat here thinking, at what point has things changed? Like the business of music and the way it's consumed is, like you just said a minute ago, is really, really different. As soon as you mentioned Elvis, actually the first thing I thought of was actually his backing band. The musicians that he used to work with are session greats. I mean, they are considered up there in talent and experience. And your camera just broke, didn't it?
We're trying a new system, and it doesn't like what I'm doing.
Anyway, so meanwhile, whilst he's fixing his camera, I shall go rambling on about Elvis.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can certainly still hear you. We're fine, actually.
The camera's fallen out of the helicopter, but I'm still vocally here.
You know that moment in Wayne's World where the camera or something goes horribly wrong and Garth is left sat on his own talking? This is what immediately came to mind. But since we're talking about it, I think the musicians is what kind of sprung to mind first of all, and them being session greats and being able to turn their talents to pretty much anything. I wondered if that actually had any influence in what they were putting out as well. I don't know. Is it is the listening public more narrow-minded and let's say the Radio 1 playlist, for example. I mean, it tends to be quite a narrow band of genre, doesn't it?
I think, yeah. I always say when I get in the car, do not put on. We're just going to suffer with this camera for a minute.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I always say when I get in the car, please don't put Radio 1 on. And the wife has always got Radio 1 on. So when I get in the car after her, I'm literally going, they're playing some sort of like modern day music, which seems to go on. It's like one song that like pans the whole of the day because it's all one. It's whatever it may be. So it really does do my nut in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quick to as hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about later on. I'm quick to not diss people's listening habits, and there are for what Radio 1 delivers, there is obviously millions and millions of listeners who love it. It's not my cup of tea. I couldn't listen to it all day. Yeah, and I think in my own listening, I listen to quite a varied range of music, and I think everyone kind of says that, don't they? But I think my music collection's got some pretty random stuff in it, and I don't think I could listen to such a narrow band of music for that amount of time.
Okay, well, if we go around the circle, such as like my screen, I am here, people. I've just been overtaken with modern technology that has defeated me.
It's like a single eye of the Mysterons at the moment. There's just this little one circle going on.
We've got more views now than ever that I'm not on the screen, so I don't know if that's a good thing or not. So if that's the kind of symbol I have on my life when my alarm goes up in the morning. That is kind of like my brain just starting to go, like you just like managed to like calm down. I am still here, peoples.
Technical difficulties. We're fine. We can overcome anything.
Technical, because if we're getting more views, then I think it's planned. Anyway, so what kind of music? All right, name a band that goes on in your car first.
Am I allowed to go like bang up to date with something which people are probably going to go, oh, what?
Go on.
Okay, then. Well, I'm going to tell you what's on my stereo at the moment, and that's not necessarily indicative of everything that I listen to, but just what has been giving me the kind of like feels right now is a band called Vola. And it's I love prog, and I love my sort of rock and metal and stuff like that. Although, as I said,
VOLARE.
VOLA.
Just VOLA.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm fairly new to them. I'm not like kind of like, I've been listening to them from day one. Probably the last couple of years or so. Yeah, absolutely loving it. It's really, I'm a sucker for a good song. And usually when people kind of like say, you listen to metal, that's just the noise, isn't it? Or something like that. No, I was brought up on bands like we just.
Carry on, but I just.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. I was brought up on bands like, we're talking about Elvis and sort of like bands which, good song bands. And actually, I really like Vola because there's some really, really cool grooves in it. Lots of very rhythmic aspect to it, very prog nature to it, but actually some really great songs. Another band called Carnival, I really love those as well. Their album called Sound Awake is definitely right up there. I'm loving that one. It's brilliant.
Again, if you're tuning in and you've just catched up with us, we're talking music, bands. We'd really like it if you commented, if you could, if you're watching on a device where you can type. Stick in there like your favourite band, artist, singer-songwriter of any decade. It doesn't matter. It could be from the 1600s for a weekend. It might be somebody that had their own little mandolin player or something. We don't know. But yeah, feel free to join in the chat. And as stated, when we do Talking Point with Dan and Jay, it may be with Dan and Jay and you. You can feel free to just message the show directly, and I will send you the link, and you can come up on the screen and talk to us face to face if you want. This little corner of the internet that we've grabbed is very comfortable. We like it.
It's pretty nice, actually, isn't it?
That's all right. Have you got a cup of coffee? Did you not have a cup of coffee with you?
No, I've got just a glass of water, actually.
If my unofficial personal trainer, Mr. Ben Hale, saw me holding coffee, he'd probably be very angry. Because whenever I go live, I try and have water because it's the only time of day I drink water. And then if I do it on the air, people think I'm really healthy. So obviously I've just got to keep using my branded mug until people buy me a house.
I tell you what, I particularly like your branded mug. That's very, very cool, actually.
You should. Do you know why? Because like you said, all the money goes to charity. It goes to the Mind charity now for mental health awareness and helping lovely people. So nice. Yes, if you want a mug, get in contact with the show and you get a mug for donating to charity. I mean, that's better than just putting £2 in the bucket, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But these aren't £2. I do apologise. They're a little bit more expensive than that. But still, postage and packaging it's not free. The Royal Mail hasn't, suddenly decided to go bankrupt by giving free mail postage. Anyway, so music. So you've got that. I'm not sure how this service that we're using works, and if Facebook is going to ban me for 400 years if I play a branded song.
Might do actually, might it?
If I was to play on my phone a song over my phone and say, guys, is this the band you're listening to? Facebook might flash up and say you don't have the royalties or rights for that. So I'm not going to. No. But what we can do is later on, if it ever comes a topic of interest, I can add a YouTube clip into the comments later on.
Absolutely.
So no dramas. Right. So music in general. Go on, as you were.
I want to know what you're listening to at the moment. You asked me, what's on my car stereo, and I didn't get a chance to see what's turning you on.
Actually, if I'm honest, I've been listening to The Weeknd.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I really I'm a sucker for a catchy tune, regardless who it is. And obviously, modern day now, you've got to be, if you can be a modern. Is it called an earworm?
Yes.
Is that the phrase? You need an earworm.
Yeah.
Which is something that sticks like a melody or a rhythm or something that just gets stuck in your head. Now, The Weeknd is... this hair is horrible. I'm going to have to face that so you don't see it. He had a song, and that was... I think it was everybody's. It was Blinding Lights. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
You know it. Because it was all over... I think it was all over TikTok as well. It became a trend. It went... and now it's in your head. And that was that's an earworm because you're going to be humming that all day.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I have access to Apple Music. Other music suppliers are available. We are not sponsored or affiliated with one. So I had that, and I put, listen to the album. And I was hooked. And now, constantly on repeat, I think I'm into my third week of listening to nothing but TalkSport or The Weeknd. It's
okay.
But I am in danger of becoming like an 8-track, and eventually it's going to be worn out in my head. I am no longer going to want to hear that. So, but I think it was because of the songs. Again, I don't really look into it and see if he writes or records or does everything himself. But the music itself is good. So that is a bit of a far left snap from what I actually normally listen to. Because you'd normally in the car listen. If you got in the car with me, you wouldn't be surprised to be listening to something along the lines of Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco. Do you know what I mean? That sort of thing, which I call pop rock, really, because they've gone mainstream a little bit now, and things like that, or the odd musical. Yeah.
Really? Tell me, what's your musical of, have you got a guilty pleasure musical?
It's normally like a modern musical, so the same as everybody, we probably have all heard of The Greatest Showman, so that soundtrack's really good.
Yeah.
Just because it's a sing-along one, and we know the actors in it. The musical has gone and paid really, really lots of money on actually getting these actors in it that we know to sell the show, and it did. What was it? No, you'll like this one. The other musical, I listened to Little Shop of Horrors. The musical, but the original cast from the movie. So
I've only ever seen the movie, so I've not seen any updated shows or anything like that. But okay, cool.
Okay, if you don't want to comment, that's fine. But you need to comment on this next question. Beforehand, we had an earworm that we couldn't figure out, and it was who sang
Mad World.
Mad World. Both versions. We'd like to know because one went to #1 and was a Christmas #1.
Yeah.
And then who sung it originally? So if you think you know, because we don't know, if you tell us it's the Teletubbies, we'd believe you because we don't know.
It would have taken 30 seconds to look it up, but because we're so busy talking about something else, we didn't actually bother, did we? I mean, it wouldn't have taken long to find out, but
no, we could have looked.
We're going to get someone else to do our homework for us. It'll be fine.
All right, so we're homeschooling again. So mum's done the homework. Okay. So in regards to let's talking music now, music. I think it's a common subject, regardless of what genre you do, because everybody has an affiliation with some sort of shape or music that determines a period in their life. People can revert back to certain moments, good or bad, in their life with music. My music, when I listen to music, it actually... Right, okay, this is going to sound really weird now, but you're going to understand it a little bit more than most, so I'll explain a little bit more. When I was young, I never... So pitch perfect, Facebook's going to take us down for that. And I wasn't into music, I was into sports. When I was at school, it was Pogs. Yeah. Pogs. And like you say, Sabutio and stuff like that. So I didn't really get into music. And then like my dad's a musician, obviously Kevin, he obviously then had this like massive vinyl and CD collection. It was just, rather than just like having it on in the background, it was kind of like the Mrs. Trunchbull in the best way possible. It was like, give yourself a bit of culture, take these CDs upstairs, listen to them, tell me what you think. If you hate music altogether, fine, but you've experienced it. So one of them was I got the Red Hot Chili Peppers album, which is Californications.
Okay.
So I had that one. Yeah, that's it. The second one was Ocean Colour Scene. I can't remember the name of the album, so I'm really bad at that. I should not say stole, but I also took David Gray.
Yeah.
White Ladder?
White Ladder, yeah. Great
I am good at this, my dad. If he's not watching, he'll be well upset that I've not remembered these.
Jay's dad.
And then for Christmas, I got a CD player, and I know that sounds like really stupid in modern times, but getting my first boombox with a CD attachment, it wasn't a cassette, was like, winning the lottery. And with that, I got the Beatles #1 album, which was the collection of like all their hits.
Nice.
And obviously, if you know my dad, he plays Beatles music in bands and whatnot. So I was sitting there, and that they are in themselves, those 4 selections there is a wide range of music because, again, if we're going to music, Red Hot Chili Peppers, it's got a heavy bass line, as you'll appreciate with Flea, who's an amazing bassist, in his own right.
Yeah.
You're going to have to explain to us how it's scientifically possible to move the way he does and continue to play the correct notes.
Sure. Oh, we've got to do that in a minute. There's actually a question which has been buzzing around my head. Actually, Okay, because I don't want you to give away too much because I like where you're going.
Okay.
There is a speaking of bassists. Actually, there's a online. I don't think he calls himself an educator, but there's a chap called Adam Neely. Who presents on his own YouTube channel. And some really, really interesting pieces about music education, music theory, and things like that. And if I remember rightly, he posted a video a while back with some really good points to back it up, to say that the music that you were listening to when you were 14 will shape the love of music that you have for the rest of your life. Now, in that music that you're listening to, A, were you 14? And B, what music were you listening to then? And are you still moved by those genres? Is it true? And what do the listeners think,
Yes, I
readers
still
think?
very much. I still whenever. Okay, I obviously find my own direction in music, but I am still often reverted back to my father's wisdom, because he scours the internet for the most obscure music sometimes of excellence, that would probably
Yeah.
fit right into his genre. Uh, so I take a lead sometimes from what he's like sent me. He's like sent me a link and he's like said this, but it all kind of goes together well. Yes, it probably was about that age, 13, 14, where I started, when I was able to have music on, and then experiment myself with music and talent, but which we'll go into later. And at the same time, I also had the Slim Shady album, Eminem's Slim Shady,
Yeah.
which I think every child
It was
in my year at that point also was playing it
it was
back.
huge. It was huge, wasn't
It was
it?
a very big album. I think it
Yeah.
was. I think it outsold rap albums that probably put a lot of people's noses right, because again, we're not talking too harsh, but he is generally a white rapper, and other than Vanilla Ice, he was a little bit out of sorts, in the rap world. And he came out with this amazing album that shaped music, for the youth, because again, tell me if I'm wrong, but rap's always been around, but it was very 90s rap.
Do you know what I've got to say?
90s, the old chain and the clock and everything around your chest, as the Run DMC and stuff like that. Any sort of rap I can think of, I don't think of violent rap. I think of actual clever rap. You like to say Run DMC. You got NWA, which is clever rap because it's a story in itself. Yeah, and then like you say, so I was just given this massive pile of music and genres to feed into my tiny little brain. Which, yes, nowadays I still will listen to Ocean Colour Scene, but obviously it's older albums, and obviously if they bring anything dramatically new out, I will be on it. But that led me to listening to, I don't know if you heard of the Songbook Collective, which is.
Don't know.
I'll have to talk about that another day. But my dad introduced that, and they came down to Suffolk and they played at the Claremont Pier, and a fantastic night. It was Steve, the guitarist from Ocean Colour Scene, had obviously filmed, was surrounded by other talented musicians. I think it was the bass player from The Moons as well, was there, and other things, or whatever, the drummer. Anyway, it was like a collection of fantastic musicians that got together and just gone, let's just make something different. And
Amazing.
Yeah. So when you were 14, back in the days of washing your linen in a little, the wash basket outside of the field.
Ooh, God, bloody.
Okay, no, seriously though, who was your musical inspiration? I think that you haven't changed your music love, I'd like to think, because of the way that obviously the music that you refer back to on your social media, because we're friends. But go on, let's see, who was it then? Who was at 14? Kate Bush.
Do not knock Kate Bush. I mean, 14 specifically.
Okay, around that,
Yeah. Okay. Well, before then, I mean, the music which kind of shaped my listening, even when I was very, very young, 5, 6, 7, that sort of age, there were a few specific albums, mainly because they're the only ones in the house that left a fairly indelible mark. Yeah, anyone who has seen my social media will know that I will ramble on about Queen a lot. You know, as a musician, they have done more than just been music I've enjoyed listening to. Some of their performances and songwriting skills are quite literally a Bible in songwriting. So, you know, they've certainly helped me as a musician, as well as just being very, very connected with their music. But I was listening to that. I mean, A Night at the Opera was probably the first Queen album I heard. And that's pretty a fairly good way to start listening to their music, I think. And maybe deep down, you know, I wasn't really listening to prog at the time, or even knew what prog was, but you couldn't say that that album wasn't. You know, it is very proggy. Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds was
Okay.
blew my mind. I mean, again, 5, 6, 7, whatever age I was. I mean, it was just an album which was difficult to get my head around. As I'm listening to a story, and there's lots and lots of people singing, and there's lots and lots of seemingly scary things going on. I mean, that was just another epic album, really. But
So how
12,
old is that? How old is the original of that then?
I don't know. I'd literally have to Google it. I was.
We don't. We're not using Google, are we, on this show? We're hoping that people will comment, and nobody is. So we must be
Okay,
boring.
can someone go and look up when War of the Worlds was written? And obviously, there's the book came a long time beforehand, but it'd be really interesting to hear when the album.
And not the movie with Tom Cruise. We're on about.
No, not a bad movie. So 12, 13, 14. I mean, I was definitely really listening to a lot of Queen. And maybe kind of, my brother, he's a bit older than me. It was his birthday. What's the date today? A couple of days ago? I can't even.
It's 13th.
It's 13th, right? Okay. Sorry, Rich. It's his birthday a couple of days ago. He's older than me. So I think it was probably him who brought in, bands like Iron Maiden, the new wave of British heavy metal, I guess, into the house. So, I'd kind of maybe wander into his room whilst he had these big, amazing vinyl gatefolds open and just have a look at these incredible albums. So rock and metal started appearing as well. I don't know, all sorts of things. Skid Row, Metallica.
Have you got any Faith No More in there?
Of course, absolutely. Of course. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I remember very, very clearly. I'd try and kind of sneak in and go and watch. My brother had live in Brixton.
Okay.
Which is an absolutely brilliant Faith No More concert. And he used to put that on his VHS video. That's right, kids. It was like a giant cassette tape. And he used to Massive. None of this streaming business. The internet didn't even exist. You wouldn't be having this conversation today, I tell you.
I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Carry on. Yeah. So
yeah, anyway. So 12, 13, 14. God, I don't know. It was probably stuff like that. I mean, Def Leppard were kind of seeing a fair amount of activity around then as well, weren't they?
No harm in that.
No harm in that. But my mum was playing lots and lots of really, really cool music. Simon and Garfunkel, the Everly Brothers. I mean, I didn't even realize exactly how good that music was when I was listening to it at that age, and I've certainly come to appreciate it now. And the Everly Brothers, their harmonies, just bonkers good. And obviously, we're going to talk about singing and everything like that in a bit. I'd like to, because I want to know more about your musical background and sort of singing like.
Okay.
But their harmonies were just absolutely spot on and incredible. So it's probably surrounded by a lot of really, really cool music. My auntie played loads and loads of really cool music when we used to go and see her on her big old stereo. But I can't for the life of me think of much of it off the top of my head right now. I've had one of those the red light is on and my mind has gone blank kind of moments. Yeah, I can't remember. That's a fairly good list, actually, isn't it? I mean, it's a few different genres going on there.
Yeah, I think. Double tapped. Why would I do that?
Have you broken it?
No, I've just double tagged. I'm just telling people name a band you like. People. I want people to comment and join in if you are watching. Name a band you like. Or like you say, if you want to message the show directly, we'll send you the link, and you can come on here and you can tell me and Dan to shut up live on social media. We don't care.
Right.
This is a very laid back chat. We did. Not that this isn't, but for those that watch the show regularly, the Chaturday Live Weekend Live serious topic show was yesterday with Mr. Chris Humphrey from Kendall Town Football Club manager. There's a part 2 to that coming, and it might be next weekend because we had to run off because of both had commitments. And he's a fantastic footballer and manager that I get to work closely with now, and I think we've only touched the surface of that topic. But this is the laid back show with Talking Point with Dan and Jay, where your opinion matters unless we disagree with it. I don't know. I don't know. We're joking. Well, you know what this channel's all about. It's all about involvement. So don't feel shy. If you don't feel like you've got a topic to share with the show and have your own personal interview, using Talking Point with Dan and Jay is probably where you can have your 5 minutes of fame.
Sure.
And still be famous, because we are stretching. I mean, we have literally we are now probably streaming to at least 1, 2, 3, 4 million. No, 1, 2, 3, or 4 people. Who knows? But you can have fame. So, music as a general. So, okay, rather than going into each other's lives and making this show all about us, we got to make it about music and the topic of music. And the big gripe I have, Dan,
go on in.
is, and I say this to people all the time, it's like, I will not listen to music unless I feel it is real music. Now, I said at the beginning of the show that I have been listening to The Weeknd's album, and that was probably a lot of studio stuff. So I'm stepping on my own toes here. But if I'm going to fall in love with somebody and they're forever going to be in my playlist, there has to be at least 2 instruments being played by a person and not a PC. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
In my eyes. So when you listen to Lady Gaga, I know that she is a very accomplished pianist. She's fantastic, and I think that she uses live instruments in her recordings as well, deliberately for that, because she has a personal connection with music. If I was to then turn around and say, like you say, Billie Eilish, like you said yourself, probably studio-wise, it was a lot of probably
I will kind of qualify that because that's coming from I've not it'd be interesting to watch the documentary and see kind of what's going on there. But I mean, there is discussions which have sort of suggested that Billie and her brother put together the album in a bedroom, on a computer. And I know that there would be the immediate kind of backlash that it feels like it's not real, and I mean I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of, my angle on it is it's not so much how it's been made, but does it feel like it has integrity? No. Does it feel like it's lazy? Because, and reframe it. Okay, so one person doing all the music themselves. I call it a guilty pleasure. I was listening to Jean-Michel Jarre when I was very, very young. I mean, that was sure, we didn't have the kind of technology of sequencing that we have today. The box behind me is incredible. What I can do with it. But he did a lot of that on his own, and those machines were all creating the sounds, and some of the soundscapes which he was creating in, say, 1975, 1976, whatever, was just truly miles ahead of its time. But if you placed it in kind of today's music, you went, it's just probably using a computer to still create that music. But the way that it's written, the actual quality of the writing, the composition skills that have gone into it is what has made the music. Some of the sounds on there were, very, very basic tone generators in comparison to the kind of things that we have today. But if we are, I'm in danger of going down music theory route here, but I mean, there are chord progressions in current pop music which are used over and over and over and over. The 1564, Google that bad boy, has been used so many times. And there's some really, truly amazing songs that use this formulaic approach to writing a verse or a chorus. And those songs are amazing. But it also feels a little bit like sometimes that it's kind of like a very, very easy way to create something. And you can actually make some quite interesting songs without actually having to put a great deal of effort in it. So where do we lay with that one? I mean, kind of if, you know... Is it lazy writing, which is the problem, using a computer, or is it, anyone using a computer is not a real musician? I mean, that's an interesting.
I think, like you say, if you're a DJ, you would say, like if you're David Guetta or something like that, you would say that you're a musician, right? Because you've made music, which, as we read out at the beginning of the show, what the actual the definition of music is pitch, pattern, and sound. So it doesn't really matter if it's an instrument, does it? It's music, which is being put together in a tempo. So yes, all music is classed as music as we see it, but everybody has their own interpretation. Like my granddad would turn around and go, "That's not music, that's just noise." And then I'm sure that at some point when my son grows older and he's listening to a new wave or form of music that's been developed for his youth, I'm going to turn around and say, that's not music, that's just noise too. So it's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? What somebody would define as interesting and music. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't sit there and class thrash metal screaming into a microphone saying how bad your parents were when you were young, or whatever it may be, as music. I just call that noise, and I call that very nasty noise. But there are people out there that think that's the best thing since sliced bread, and they're entitled to that opinion. It is. And then I may turn around and go, I really like listening to classical music, and somebody would turn around and go, well, where's the words in there? Again, it's not for everybody. It's like, how can you tell what's going on by the sound? And I go, well, that's the difference between listening and listening. Because they say if you go, I'm lucky enough that I say I have a musical background. I've married into a relationship with a woman that is also musically talented. So these topics constantly fly around the house, where she will listen to something and I will turn around and go, that is absolutely dog's dinner. And then she'd say the same about things I said. So that is probably the best part about having a debate. As long as it's friendly and nobody gets your knife out, starts threatening and say, you will like the Beatles or something like that, then it's not too... I mean, if you don't like the Beatles, again, please delete the internet. I mean, you don't deserve it. This is the age-old question, isn't it? Should we debate it in like the quickest 30 seconds we possibly can?
Go on in.
Who is the best band of all time, the Rolling Stones or the Beatles?
Oh my god!
Because you will have Stones fanatics that will say that the Rolling Stones were around at the same time and created better music than the Beatles, and the Beatles only became pop fascist icons, and or whatever it may be. I'm going to be the middleman and say I like them both.
I know. The thing is with being a musician is that I soak up lots of different genres, and I can see reasoning in why someone would like either, and I actually find it difficult to actually kind of then poo-poo that, because whatever their reason is a valid one. I love that there's no doubt that George Martin was an incredible arranger, and there's lots of areas of the Beatles' back catalogue where you just listen to it and marvel at it. Even like many years later, the Love album, which is bit of like a Beatles mashup album where, hopefully I've got this right. So George Martin and his son, actually, I think, remixed a whole bunch of Queen. Say I was on the wrong thought process there for a moment. Beatles material and mashed up some of these like famous songs and remastered them, and it's absolutely brilliant. Post Beatles, and it still kind of stands as something really, really incredible. So my vote for the Beatles would be because of because of that album alone, because it's absolutely amazing. But I really love some of the again, the composition skills, what the individual members brought to the Stones. What they were able to do as a collaboration, shall we say, which would have been different had it been a bunch of different musicians. So that's on the fence, isn't it? That's really on the fence.
Well, it is. Well, like you say, I think that's the way it is. If you're a musician, you would say it'd be like a biblical sense, wouldn't it? As the equivalent of a god of any shape or form, that you would find all musicians equal. That when you're a musician, you look at them and you see the good in what they do, regardless of. But if you don't, like you say, if you have a style of music, this would be the same as like trying to convince the mods and rockers, to get along back in the day without like throwing chairs across a nightclub at each other. Like in the good old days where you could be in a pub. What is this slander, swear words?
I know. I mean, to be honest, for heated debate, you've picked the wrong person, because I'm not kind of yes, well, I can see both sides of that. It's very, very interesting.
I need to get like a Jeremy Kyle show together where you genuinely have people of polite negative decisions on something. Like if you go, I'm a VW enthusiast, and you go, oh well, I have a Ford Transit van that I've converted. Sacrilege! That sort of thing.
No, I don't know. I think someone's gonna have to really pick at me and find out what it is. Like, what is gonna finally kind of like get my goat and send me over the edge. Probably there's something in there, But for the most part, for music, as a musician, I do session work when I can, and if someone offers me some session work, it's my job, and it really helps if you like what it is that you're being sent. So having maybe a wide musical background, everything from classical music to punk, I suppose, absolutely brilliant album, great band, excellent bass player. Hi, Paul. So that helps. So, being sent a piece of music and going, oh, well, this is absolutely and utter sugar, is going to make it difficult to do that piece of work, because you're not going to invest in it and be able to give maybe your best performance. So, yeah, debating music. There's probably some styles that I probably wouldn't want to play all the time, or maybe listen to all the time, but at the same token, I'd fairly find it difficult for the reasons that we've discussed already to kind of like say, well, this is absolutely utter rubbish or whatever,
I want to like. Can I put like this whole kind of debate over the internet when it comes to individual musicians in a band about who's right and who's wrong? So, am I right in saying that if the drummer misses a cue, he has to look, it's the bass player's fault, or vice versa? It's normally the bassist and the drummer that get things wrong. The lead guitarist will finish when he's ready.
Yeah, no. Okay, so it was. This is come from that. There's a Nick Mason quote. So from the drummer from Pink Floyd, it said something like, "As a drummer, if you ever make a mistake, turn and look angrily at the bass player."
Right. Okay.
And that comes up quite a lot on the internet. Kind of like memes have been made about it. often my response to those often is that is why drummers always look angry when they're playing drums. And that's usually a kind of a witty retort that kind of like gets me out of jail and I can leave the conversation quickly. No, to be honest, the responsibility when things go wrong doesn't necessarily fall on any particular musician. I mean, you'll know as well that if something goes wrong, then you're kind of committed as a band to know and act accordingly to get out of it. Whatever it might be. Now, if there happens to be one person that is, say, a musical spokesman, an MD, a director, then that's always very, very helpful. But there's a quote by Nathan East, very famous session bassist. I mean, he's played with everyone, and you were talking about quotes to live by. His quote, very, very simple: attitude plus aptitude equals altitude. So this, it's about knowing your shit. Excuse the language, excuse the word, but I mean, we're okay. Is it past the water? No, it's not. Okay, sorry, kids. But
we are literally the Saturday version of the One Show. We need to keep this PC.
I'm very, very sorry for using such language, but I think you get the idea. I mean, so knowing what you're doing. So if someone makes a mistake, sure, sort it out afterwards. But in the moment, it's about making the best of it and fixing it, because you're all in it together. And if you're a professional band, both in attitude and earning, then you get it fixed whilst you're doing, and you know how to fix it on stage. So it's in the moment, it's not anyone's fault. You just need to get over it. But everyone messes up, don't they? I mean, we're all at a different journey as musicians, different place at what we are doing, what we're capable of, blah, 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 blah. And we're only human, so mistakes will happen.
Yes.
Obviously, if kind of like, someone keeps making mistakes and they're not doing their homework and they're not pulling their weight, then that's also something which needs to be dealt with off stage, because it's pretty unprofessional to be having a go at each other live on stage whilst you're playing at someone's wedding or something like that.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, wedding bands that are going out calling themselves, professional outfits, and hearing some pretty ghastly stories about, they shouldn't have even been playing in a pub for that matter, rather than, asking the bride and bridegroom for, that kind of amount of money for something. I
will put my hands up and say that, I don't know if this is timed out. Is it called today? If it has, hang on. I have to explain this while you see my face.
Yeah, go on.
There we go. So, I have never been in a band that I felt was very unprofessional at that given moment in time. Obviously, afterwards, handbags have been thrown across the room, and we've had discussions, if necessary. Because of my position in a band, obviously, I'm normally the one that just kind of stands at the back and just kind of goes, whoa, they've got beef. Because obviously the musicians that are playing instruments will notice when another musician playing an instrument has done something else. Because if the guitarist is gone over to the bridge and the bass player has not followed him, you both know that someone's gone out. And the drummer is just kind of like Animal from the Muppets, and just kind of just goes whoever the sound is going with at the time. Whereas a singer, I'm just like, I just look around and then follow the one that's the loudest. I just go, okay, I'm just going to follow that because that's what other people can hear, and if that's the rhythm, then I'll go with that. But yeah, normally like the bands that I've been in, things have gone wrong, as you say, and you've been in that position as well, where either an instrument has gone down, or a string has broken, or somebody's read the wrong sheet, or the drummer has gone too quickly into a chorus. But luckily enough, the people that I've performed with have had the utmost talent, yourself included, in this lovely bracket. I've had the talent to know that In the words of Freddie Mercury, the show must go on. At the end of the day, you can't just stop halfway through and have an intermission that you choose through a song. So yeah, I'm lucky enough that I've seen it. I mean, there's probably loads of stuff on YouTube of bands having like fits and actually going out for one at somebody's bar mitzvah or something. That'd be quite funny. I might have to Google that. I'm sure there's like a compilation. So. Yeah, like you say, being like going back to the original question about who's right and wrong when it comes to musicians. If you're professional, it should never really be seen on a professional basis. And like you say, behind closed doors, you drop the drumsticks and the picks down on the floor, and you just like fight to the death, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I think this has just made his mind back up. Hang on.
I mean, I think there is an incredible skill set. I think you can play on stage.
Yes, sir.
And you can play your instruments all together. And for those who maybe aren't musicians, there is actually a whole completely another layer. Band skills, your ability to learn and experience how to deal with these, not necessarily problems, but just silly stuff like what the singer says to the audience and how you build a rapport and basic psychology, sort of things like that, and also dealing with your other members for all the things that you've just mentioned. I mean, they are skills which I guess need to be learnt and put in action. You can't if something goes wrong, it's stuff which in any other kind of theatre or anything like that, you've practiced your lines, you've practiced where you should be on stage, and it's the same within music. This is stuff which should happen in the practice room. So what happens when something goes wrong? This is a good one actually. Can the bass player and the drummer play the whole song on their own with no vocals, guitars, or keys? And I got that one from one of my favourite bass players, kind of going, if you're going to go out to practice, you don't actually need the whole band to do it. If, say, as a rhythm section, your bassist and your drummer can get all the way through the song without anything else being played, then they know their stuff. See, I've edited my words now.
Can I throw a coin into that argument to say that would you admit to the judge and jury of today's court that whilst performing your bass rhythm with the drummer on your own in a recording studio or practice rehearsal, that you were not humming along the vocals in your head at the same time to know your bass?
The thing is, that is the part of the skill. No, that is part. Yeah, not going to flip it. I mean, that is part of the skill. I mean,
are you in your head? Yeah. Not just counting the beat, but you are visually singing the song, not singing it through your head, but you're singing it kind of going.
I'm generally hearing lots. Yeah, I mean,
hearing a version of a song that would,
even playing a gig. What I'm doing. And I don't know if this is necessarily right. It seems to have worked for quite a lot of years, so I'm going to keep sticking with it. This is quite funny. We're talking about favourite albums earlier on, and I tend not to listen to words. I don't know some of the words to some of my favourite songs. So in a band situation, because I simply can't concentrate on all of that stuff at once, I listen for cues. It could be the first line of a chorus. It could be I'm waiting for maybe a particular drum fill or a horn stab or something like that. And that, even when I'm not playing with the band, is almost, tattooed in there. It becomes part of a bare bones structure, a crib sheet, if you will, rather than actually thinking about going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3, etc.
I'm going to say that obviously back in the day, like very back in the day, obviously musicians played live, which they do now, but they played live and they fed off each other, and there was a drummer go 1, 2, 3, and then you'd start, or somebody in the band would count, and you'd start playing. Now, what you were saying there is that if you know the count and the tempo of the song, and then you as a guitarist or bassist or a drummer should know the length of the song and know your place in theory, yeah? So you'll know that the song is going to be going this way to a bridge, to a chord and stuff. Now, the reason why I bring this up, and I said this is what before we came on air, is that you're not unfortunately showing it this evening because you're wearing Apple earpods, but I am. I'm going to turn my head to the side and show the viewers at home the behind the scenes called a cheat sheet in music, and this is these, which you will see here, which are not your standard earphone. Can you see that all right, Dan?
Looks pretty good to me, yeah.
Okay, so you can generally see what that is. You can generally see what that is. That is obviously a professional in-ear piece, which is flesh covered. So when I look at you lovely, you probably haven't even noticed that I've had it in. And I will take it out on one side, and you can see that it is generally just an earpiece that you could probably buy a replica of. But these are the higher versions of skin color. I pushed that in there. And now, for you listening at home, my microphone is being run via my system in front of me. So if you have heard my 2-year-old screaming because he doesn't want to go to bed in the background, you would have heard that, but I wouldn't, and Dan will know why. It's because these, when they fit correctly, literally block out everything annoying in your life other than what you want to hear. So yes, the reason why I've mentioned this is because when I perform on stage, and I know Dan does as well, when you wear these in your ears, it's because we now get a live mix now of the instruments that we do and don't want to hear. Dan might not necessarily want to hear me as a singer. He might be like, you know what, I don't really need to hear him, but I really would like to hear the drummer and the guitarist, so I know that we're all in sync. Because if the singer goes off and decides to sing his own version of, you know, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, at least I know the other two are where we need to be. So that's where you get a monitor mix in your ears. And then same as me as a musician, I just need the drums and bass, because then I can count where I am singing and a little bit of the lead guitar or the keyboard or whatever it may be. So if you go to a professional event, you've probably seen it, you know, when you go to like the festival or other festivals, you'll see somebody on stage, and what they'll do is they'll go kick one out. They'll be standing and singing and playing. And if you kick one out, it's because they're trying to hear you, the crowd, not because they're deaf. It's because genuinely with these in, you could be screaming, I love you. And they'll be like, elephant juice? What? No, I've got nothing. So yeah, so I'm going to go to the comedy version of that. Have you ever been at a gig and either the bride or the groom or the birthday boy has come up to you and go, can you play this? Can you do that? The first part is, can you repeat that whole thing that you just shouted at me? Because I heard nothing of it. Or the other side is whenever you go to a bride or groom is, can you play right, the modern day equivalent of an earworm, which was always asked for, is could you play Mr. Brightside? Whenever you're at any gig, okay, you're at a wake for somebody, you know, granddad's just passed away, you know, the average age group in the audience is probably 60 plus. And then you've got obviously the grandchildren that may be 17 or 18-year-old, and you're having a music and somebody will come up to you and say, can you play Mr. Brightside? And then my answer has just generically been, yes. They didn't ask me to play it then, they just said, can you? And so I just continued my argument. But would you say that you prefer in-ears, if we're going to carry on this, do you prefer having this monitor system to a live system? One, because obviously it may save your ears for later on in life because musicians can be loud. But two, is this the technical way forward that that all musicians should use, or would you rather have a live setting without them and have comfortable ears? I mean, what is your actual point on that?
Awesome. I want to talk about weddings first, but
go on.
Good question. No. Just a polite request to people thinking of getting married and watching this evening. It's funny. The amount of times that I've played weddings and had someone come up to me, it's fine to ask, and you all know this one, don't do it whilst I'm singing the song. Don't do it whilst I'm actually playing the song. I've got these in, I can't take it out, and I know I am Superman, not. I cannot play, sing, listen, and respond at the same time. And there's been some funny times like this kind of. On one occasion, we played a converted mill somewhere in Norfolk. I forget which one. And this chap, I think probably father of the bride, was very intent on getting the point across. And I'm trying to play. I'm being paid to entertain the party. I do not want to make a mistake. Okay? So a professional wedding band do not want to make any mistakes. They do not want to be kind of upsetting this wonderful once in a lifetime moment. So, the father of the bride at my ear constantly whilst trying to play. It may have been like a Stevie Wonder song or something like that. So, like a nice tricky bass line.
It wasn't with me, was it?
No, it wasn't. No,
Okay,
it wasn't. No, no, I stood at the back for those gigs. That's fine. But yeah, and eventually I sort of went, look here. I know my hair's in the way, but I can't hear you. And now my hand's off the bass. And yes, I can play with just my left hand. So yeah, no, big no. Very, very rubbish moment. And maybe in ears at that moment was not the advantage. But do I think it's the way forward? You said earlier on, is it cheating having this with your own thing plugged into your ears? Not at all. Not at all. I started playing my first live gig. I was 13, 14. My first paid gig was 16. First time having a pint in a pub and getting called out whilst playing live on stage, 17. Locally to here, actually. So I've been playing on stage for a lot of years, and stupidly, to be honest, ear protection wasn't really a thing properly back then as well. So with things getting louder and venues getting smaller and the overall ambience being a lot noisier, things like ear protection alone is definitely it should be mandatory rather than kind of should you decide to wear it or not. But yeah, these in-ear mixes, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant when they're done well. Interestingly, I'm just writing a piece for Bass Player magazine on this very thank you very much, on this very, very subject. He says, knocking my earphones out. As to their advantages and disadvantages, and I think it's not something you can do on the cheap. Because the chances are it'll make it worse. You mentioned pulling one ear out. That is a symptom of a system which can't cater for what you need, i.e. when you want to hear the audience. The system that I use, I can dial in how much of my audience I want to hear, even as the bassist, who doesn't need to interact vocally. There is a way of dialing in that sound in a really high quality sort of way, and then I don't have to pull one ear out. Interestingly, pulling one ear out is actually quite dangerous, because if you're in a noisier environment, if you pull one ear out, you'll turn up this one because you can't hear anymore because all the noise is in this ear. So you're doing damage in this ear, and then you may as well just screw up that ear at the same time. So I'm getting on my soapbox now. This is me getting all riled up. Finally,
we found something you have an opinion on.
Look after your ears, please. You've only got one set, and they are really delicate inside. For those people who are jumping on stage and playing in bands, young bands getting started and stuff like that, honestly, trust an old fart who knows. It is really easy to damage your ears. So, no, I think they're the way forward. They're brilliant.
So if you don't have in-ear systems, would you say yay or nay to having, those squeezy kind of earbuds that some people wear when they go to festivals because it gets a bit too much just to block out half the sound. Would you say that, if you're going to be on a stage, something's better than nothing? Or what?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Something is better than nothing. Myself and I remember a keyboard player from an old band that I used to play in. On occasions we'd left the plugs at home. Use toilet roll, anything just to control it a little bit to look after your ears. Those little soft squidgy ones. I mean, I used to wear those for donkey's years, working in factories making furniture for Marks and Spencers. Because of all the machines.
Hang on.
But there is something called filtered earplugs. You've got some?
I threw these out not because I wanted to damage my ear, but I had to move because these are stationary and there is no loud sound. So don't worry, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
But what you're going to do, it's kind of like science class. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you exactly, because I worked in a factory. These.
Yeah,
this is exactly what we're on about.
Yeah, the
so you
little
can see those nice and clear.
Little sponges, and you can squeeze them down and roll them up, and then you pop them in sort of fairly deep-ish into your ear canal and expand out, and they do a fairly good job of getting rid of ambient noise. So if you're working with machines and the like, certainly you're going to go a long way to protecting your ears. And they
I'm
are
showing
very,
you
very
this
wise.
live how they are expanding again after it's squished them.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. It's meant to literally just in your cavities of your ears. It's good. You can still hear with these in your ears, by the way. You don't go completely, soundless, as they say. But if you're a musician and you're actually watching this with some interest and we haven't bored you to death, and we do apologise, this is the whole point of Talking Point. You are literally just watching me and Dan have a FaceTime with an audience. Simple as that. We just talk about this kind of stuff on a daily basis. But yes, if you're going to go to a music festival, what I would say, without any scientific proof or experience or knowledge, is that when music venues do let you back, that it wouldn't be a bad shout probably, because you've probably gone without loud music for a long period of time, and that's going to be a very big shock to your ears as well.
Yeah, true. I want to add some points. I was just saying before we kind of, you went and grabbed your little squidgy ones. A really good earplug to go for is something called a filtered earplug. And they have like a little, usually some sort of like membrane or something like that inside. And the idea is these soft ones that you shove in your ears don't have a very uniform attenuation, and they tend to sound muffled. Whereas these little filtered ones are not actually that expensive, 15, 20 pounds. They're reusable. You can keep using them over and over and over, and you pop them in your ears. And the idea is a bit like turning down the volume on your, MP3 player. Everything should come down in volume in a sort of a uniform manner. So those would be my recommendation, rather than spending like £1,000 on some in-ear monitors or something like that. 20 quid on a set of filtered earplugs, and there's some really, really good brands out there. Get some of those. Do them for everything. Playing gigs, rehearsals, going to watch live bands. Your ears will thank you for sure. And on the subject of ear damage, I'm going to rant. This might be the last rant, okay? So when we're allowed to go back to music venues and we're allowed to watch gigs and everything like that, and you've left the gig and your ears are whistling, you have damaged your ears. When you wake up the following morning and that whistling and howling has gone, the damage is still done. The next time you go and watch a band and your ears whistle again, that isn't kind of, a repair being damaged again. That's more damage on top of the last amount of damage you did. And one day you'll wake up and that whistling won't go. Your ears are now knackered. So there you go. Uncle Dan speaks, right? Please look after your ears. That's my... very serious, aren't I? Let's lighten out, shall we?
Have we just crossed a barrier into giving useful information? Have we
I
just
think we might have
actually?
actually.
Have we just spouted out like a 5-minute rant of useful information in this whole hour and 15 minutes we've been on the air? Are we literally gone? hey,
Finally.
I know that you've been talking absolute tosh, but we're saving your ears for later on in life. So
Yeah,
figure
finally.
away.
I mean, to be honest, like most people probably tuned out after minute 5, and it's taken till
Yes.
1 hour 16 in order
Yeah.
to get across a really
I may
valid and
have to,
useful point.
I may have to put it back when we re-comment and repost this. Please watch back from 1 hour 14 for some ear advice. But you're not wrong, and we are. Although that me and you do look like we're still very much in our 20s, we've been through it all, and I'm not going to lie. My left ear is gone. Wearing this is gone. I say that's because the wife sits next to me in the passenger seat of the car, and so much has taken me so away. It's not true. It is music related. So that side's gone. So the reason why I wear these in my ear is, as you say, just to not make it worse than it already is.
For sure.
Before it goes completely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to be old and decrepit with a walking stick to go, I wouldn't be surprised, actually, that me and you will be sitting on a park bench laughing ourselves silly, watching 19-year-olds try to do sign language to each other, not because of any hearing deficiency from birth, but purely just because they come out of a music festival and not paid any attention to any information that they got on Talking Point back in 2021. So that's on them. That's on them.
Alternatively, we're going to be sat on a park bench and you're going to turn to me and go, "What day is it?" And I'm going to go, "Thursday." And you're going to go, "No, thanks. I had a coffee earlier."
We're even adding in jokes.
Yes.
We're ready for. I reckon we're ready for prime time.
Ready for prime time.
Hey, ITV is on the phone.
How long have you been singing? When did you start singing?
Okay, so we've jumped onto me, like literally, have we? Sorry, that was quick.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm interested. When did...
I started singing when I was just a little boy.
Real music.
I was singing from the age of really probably giving it a good go from about 14.
Okay.
And then that was just publicly in front of family and friends, and just no setup or anything, but just singing along with my dad maybe in the guitar. I never really took it seriously until I was 16, and then it was a choice like go to college and try something, and I wanted to play the guitar. And although I can play it, I'm really bad at it, and I can just about put a few notes together. But it turned out that I wasn't too bad at like swinging my vocal cords around in the end, which I don't think is too bad. That's a talent in itself.
Have you got like a kind of like a singer which started it? Someone, who was it who kind of like made you go, "Oh my God, singing looks really cool"? Not in that voice, mind, but.
No, did I have a singer that I listened to? Okay, because of all those albums that we spoke about at the beginning of the show, they gave me a nice baseline of like pitch and stuff like that, because everybody's a bit different. But yeah, music-wise, I came out with my own sort of thing. When I was just about to go into college, this little nobody of a band decided to take over the world in a week called The Darkness. And Justin Hawkins had this range in his voice that hadn't been heard for a very long time. And wearing a catsuit probably gave the reason why. And it had a very high voice. And I was like, that would be awesome if I could do that. And, tooting the old horn, I can. And I went on from there, and my other instance was Mika.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
right.
So obviously the same sort of range. Obviously Freddie Mercury, that sort of range. So I went down that route. On a good day, if you catch me on a good day and I'm all vocally warmed up, there's nothing I can't do, or replicate to a degree. I can go very low, but I can go very high as well. So yeah, I've kind of stuck with. Actually, I'm in love with a cappella music, if I'm honest, because that's just so good. I love a cappella. Do you know what? I say that. My first real a cappella stuff was listening to the overtones for My Sins.
Okay, yeah.
But that, when it's done nice and it's calm and polite, even though they are literally just ripping off old songs and making money from it,
yeah, right.
Singing them a cappella, it's nice to see what vocals can be done as an instrument in itself, because it is a vocal instrument, which is an instrument, as I guess some would argue.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like, oh wow. So yeah, listening to stuff like that, and as you say, like the other brothers, right, while I'm there, the best vocal harmonies, I would argue, is Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Because they both have very distinct voices on their own.
For sure.
And matching them together gives you a sound that is, I think it's matching that sound of, Sound of Silence is very hard to replicate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Because of their vocals in itself. So all credit to them for sitting down there. I think there's something like we're going off topic now, but please go and have a look and watch a documentary of how the song "Sound of Silence" actually came about. I think there's something. I think the word radiator springs to mind, and tapping on a radiator.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that part of like a Simon and Garfunkel documentary in general, or
I think so? Yeah, it might well be, but they were saying that some of their songs. No, I think I've got them mixed up. I think Cecilia was the radiator one because it's got that irregular drum pattern, hasn't it?
Okay, yeah.
So I think that was the radiator one. But again, with Sound of Silence, that's an amazing. If you haven't heard the song, and shame on you if you haven't.
Yeah, for sure.
Get on the interwebs. You're allowed back on it for a brief moment to listen to Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. It will change your musical opinion regardless what it is.
It's just absolutely fantastic composition, musical skills, vocal skills. A very moving song that, as I said, I don't really listen to lyrics, but for the most part, sadly. But for the songs that you do sit down and read the lyrics and actually get something from it, it's not just like kind of a repeated phrase over and over and over. Maybe that's one of the problems I do have with you're mentioning like manufactured music earlier on, where they're not really making a point. There doesn't seem to be much of a story in whatever it is they're singing about. Where is it actually going? You certainly couldn't say that about Simon and Garfunkel, because literally all of their songs has got some sort of deeper meaning. You can read it on a fairly shallow level, or kind of spend a bit of time swimming around more deeply with whatever it is they're singing about. So Sound of Silence, there's a whole back catalogue of songs which are stunning.
Before we go on and then we ruin it for everybody, we're going to end the show tonight on a jaw-dropping question. Nobody ever got back to us, so we're going to have to go
Didn't they?
No, they never did.
So I can't see the comments. So
people are there. Was Michelle Andrews? That's not that. That's too new. Surely. Tears for Fears.
But
Tears for Fears.
That was on my mind, and I went, no, it's not them. No, it's yeah.
And Gary Jules was the one that went.
Of course,
to
Gary Jules. Yeah.
And then obviously you got Timmy Trumpet this year, which I'm guessing is a very bad knockoff by the looks of what it possibly could be. 2020. So yeah. Anyway, so it was Tears for Fears. We said it would be something like Duran Duran or something of that era anyway, 80s, didn't we?
It's really bizarre because Tears for Fears were on my mind. Again, another band who were prolific writers, amazing composers, and I kind of almost kind of like put it aside and went, no, it's not them.
So what we're going to do, we're going to end on a bombshell. Other than that was the bombshell for me and you anyway. Thank you. Mic drop. I have one. Oh, okay, that's happening. Without thinking, the most iconic vocalist that comes to mind ever. Go.
That was easy. Freddie Mercury is going to be...
Okay. Well, then, if I was to say most iconic vocalist other than Freddie Mercury would be Michael Jackson.
Other than Freddie Mercury, now that's really difficult, isn't it? This is where it starts going. There are several on a par in my headspace, which I really rate and think are someone who might not be like a massively famous, not have like in terms of album sales and things like that. Michael Jackson, you can't doubt as a multi-million, probably more.
I think if anybody came
worldwide.
to the table and went, he can't sing, he's not very good, would just have to again use the internet. You're allowed for this brief moment. We've allowed you back onto the internet, which it feels bad that we've cursed people for using the internet for not being clued up with our conversation when they genuinely have to watch us via the internet.
That's very, very true. Yeah,
we do apologise. Continue to use the internet, ladies and gentlemen, and look for Chaturday Live. And obviously, when we become big and famous, you'll think back to this night when we talked absolute dribble on Talking Point with Dan and Jay.
I hope no one's recorded it.
Oh, it's recorded. It's going to be. You can watch this on YouTube and Facebook at any given moment. Now we've gone live on 3 different channels now. Right, so with my job. So next time you see Dan and Jay, we are going to have a different topic that won't be music. So don't worry. Next time you see Dan's name on the top, we're on Talking Point. We'll keep that the show name so people know. It will be tweeted and it will be trending somewhere in probably Lithuania. I don't know. But we will come back. And next week's topic, what if we're doing it next week? Should we go into like serious talk now? Should we go into what we were talking about earlier on? And we will go into vlogging, blogging, and expenses.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kind of, what does everyone think? I mean, is this do it?
Well, we will say that now, and then what I'll do later on in the week is to say, Talking Point with Dan and Jay is back on this week. Thanks very much for the 5 people that tuned in. Could you please just tell us what you would like Dan and me to talk about and waffle on about? Well, this is like the equivalent of Loose Women. We're very one-side opinionated, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you tuning in. It's gone. It's now 8:30. We can be bitchy.
Okay, right, good. That means great. Then next time we do this, which one of us is going to do the storm off? I'm not doing this.
Yes, we'll work on it. We'll no. It's too current. Don't talk about it.
Oh dear.
I'm going to go and relax and have a cup of tea in my lovely Chaturday Live mug, which you can purchase off the Facebook page by contacting us directly. You can contact Mr Dan Veall on all social media platforms. On Twitter, you can get him on Instagram, on Bookface. He's got his YouTube thing. Started up. Is that started now? Kicked off? Going?
Slowly. Obviously, the wonders of the situation we're currently going through has obviously meant a bit of a slowdown there. But Dan Veall, bassist, is where you'll find me on social media. And yes, hopefully, my channels will have a bit more activity in them. They're all kind of like fairly new, I suppose. So, yes, hopefully.
Fine, Dan. Continue to tune into us. If you've tuned in because you found Dan, because you like him and you don't like us, continue to follow us because we will follow you. And I don't mean on the social media status. We're all allowed out to play very soon, and my car needs to put some miles on it, so we will follow you. No, that's creepy. No, we'll just follow you back on social media because we are a very connected area. Thanks very much for tuning into this very, very different version of Chaturday Live, Talking Point with Dan and Jay, and we will be back next week. Thanks very much. Everybody say bye-bye. 80s Wave Day. 80s Game Show Wave. 80s Game Show Wave.